Chosen ones, there's a conversation happening about you right now that you aren't even aware of. Someone is sitting across from another person, furious and fed up, saying those exact words. They don't give a damn about anybody anymore. But here's the twist that will crumble everything they think they know about your coldness. This isn't the story of you becoming callous. It's the story of you becoming untouchable. It's the story of the universe engineering your apparent indifference as the ultimate defense against forces that wanted to keep you small. By the time this revelation lands, you'll see that every person complaining about your coldness is actually playing a role in a divine script written to forge you into the spiritual warrior you were always meant to be. Right now, people are treating your silence like a riddle, analyzing, dissecting, trying to decode how someone who once cared so deeply could appear immune to their chaos. They sift through memories of your availability and compassion and wonder how that version of you disappeared. What they don't and can't realize is that your transformation wasn't random or merely a choice you made. It was a cosmic intervention dressed up as emotional evolution. Every single step that led here was orchestrated by forces far beyond their comprehension. Behind the scenes, the noise is louder than you know. Group chats buzzing with your name, phone calls where your behavior is treated like a psychological case study, stories passed around about how you used to be everything for everyone. But what they can't see is the foundation being laid beneath your stillness. This is only the beginning of a revelation that will reshape their understanding of power, boundaries, and spiritual warfare. The first clue that something greater was unfolding arrived in small, almost imperceptible moments: a delayed message, a missed urgency, a brief pause before you dove into someone else's emergency. Those tiny gaps were the universe testing you, your consciousness learning to protect itself. The first crack in a dam that would soon release a flood of divine boundaries. You probably thought those pauses meant nothing at the time, but they were the opening moves of what spiritual warriors call hustle mode, a demanded focus on mission that required you to ignore the trivial, to prioritize the sacred work unfolding through you. As you locked into that frequency of achievement, those who once enjoyed unlimited access to your time began to experience withdrawal. The supply they took for granted was being cut off, and it felt like betrayal to them, not because you changed for the worse, but because you changed for the better. Then came the second sign. People noticed you stopped checking in the way you used to. Daily texts faded, regular calls became irregular, your emotional availability shifted from automatic to selective. The ones who noticed most loudly weren't those who reciprocated your care. They were the energy vampires who had grown addicted to your attention. Suddenly their supply vanished without warning or explanation, and they began to weave narratives about your coldness to make sense of their loss. What they missed entirely was what was happening to you internally. You were developing an immunity, not to love, but to manipulation. You learned to spot love bombing, praise with strings, and transactional attention before they fully formed, attempts to bait you into reactive behavior, to provoke, to destabilize. All of it began to bounce off. You learned to absorb their emotional sabotage while you kept advancing toward your goals. This isn't numbness, it's mastery. It's a refined operating system that protects your heart while allowing your purpose to run its course. And finally, while they were busy complaining about your absence, you were entering the hustle season, an intense period that demands you remove anything misaligned with your highest purpose. You weren't losing your heart. You were learning to guard it from those who would exploit its generosity. The most striking thing about this transformation is how unreadable you've become to people who thought they had you figured out. That unreadability isn't a failure of empathy, it's your new armor, quiet, effective, and utterly unstoppable. There are people out there literally trying to decode your social media posts like ancient hieroglyphs, hunting for hidden meanings that simply aren't there. They're convinced your silence is about them, that every post, every pause, every small change in habit is a pointed message directed at their role in your past. Meanwhile, someone from your history is whispering to others that you must be heartbroken, that your quieter feed is a mask for pain, that your apparent peace is only a front. But in most conversations, someone eventually re-enters the truth. You're living your life. Not everything revolves around them. The reality they refuse to accept is far stronger than their delusions. Some of you are in new relationships, making fresh connections, or just savoring the calm that comes from removing toxicity. Your glow-up isn't about anyone who tried to dim you. It's about finally having the space to thrive without their draining energy. What they interpret as emotional distance is actually the emergence of someone who values their own energy more than other people's comfort with unlimited access to it. They see a person who seems to possess a supernatural resistance to drama, manipulation, and emotional coercion. What they call coldness is actually a rare spiritual upgrade. Most people never reach this level because they're addicted to being liked, desperate to be understood, or terrified of being labeled selfish. Meanwhile, something quietly powerful is happening. You're naturally attracting secret admirers while repelling the wrong people. The very traits they criticize, your selectivity, your boundaries, your refusal to engage with drama, are magnetic to folks operating on your new frequency. People who prize peace are drawn to your calm. People who respect limits are drawn to your standards. Those who manage their energy well recognize and applaud your energy protection. There's someone close by watching your evolution with admiration rather than disdain, while others gripe about your coldness. This person finds your self-respect profoundly attractive. What looks like difficulty to some reads to them as discernment, and the standards that push the wrong people away are exactly what bring the right people closer. Unintentionally, the critics are advertising your immunity to manipulation. Every complaint becomes a testimonial to your strength. Each accusation of indifference, a mark of your spiritual progress. Here's the satisfying part. As the campaign against your character grows louder, curiosity also grows. The more they rant about your change, the more people wonder what kind of transformation produces such a strong reaction. And while they invest time dissecting you, you're quietly building something that will make their opinions irrelevant. Success and peace have a way of silencing critics, and the universe is preparing to reward your discipline with tangible proof that choosing peace over popularity was the right move. Finally, every person complaining about your indifference will soon learn that your absence from their chaos has consequences they never foresaw. The emotional labor they expected you to provide is now theirs to manage. The safety net they took for granted has become a void they must fill. There's also a specific catalyst in this story, the one who deliberately uses manipulation, silent treatment, or withdrawal of attention to control you. They thought they could train you to chase approval, to fight for a place in their life. Instead, their tactics helped push you to divinely enforced detachment. And now they must face the reality that the person they tried to own is no longer available for their drama. They had no idea they were, in effect, training you to become comfortable with their absence. The catalyst is particularly triggered now because their strategy backfired in ways they never imagined. They expected your resolve to crack under the pressure of their disapproval, assumed you would eventually break down and crawl back, willing to accept less than you deserve just to restore a hollow peace. Instead, you did something that shattered their playbook. You accepted their withdrawal as a gift and used it to level up. While the catalyst tried to punish you with silence, you discovered how peaceful life could be without their constant need for drama and attention. While they waited for you to suffer, you learned to thrive. While they expected you to beg for another chance, you were already moving forward, building something better. Now they must face a reality they never prepared for. You genuinely don't need them anymore. There's another layer to this. You've developed the courage to make hard decisions. Most people won't. Some of you have been placed in leadership positions where cutting people off was necessary for the health of a team or a business. Maybe someone was costing the company money, creating drama, or undermining productivity, and you made an executive call that many leaders are too weak to make, prioritizing the organization's well-being over someone's fragile feelings. Your reputation for being ruthless is actually a byproduct of consistent, non-negotiable boundaries. When you set a limit, people know it's final. When you decide, they understand you mean it. That decisiveness commands respect in a world where too many compromise standards to avoid conflict. But the catalyst didn't act alone. There was a whole network of people profiting from your old pattern of putting everyone else first. Those who treated your kindness like a resource to be mined, your availability like an entitlement. Now they're panicking because their free ride is over. Your transformation has exposed who genuinely cared about you and who only cared about what you provided. The ones complaining about your boundaries aren't mourning the loss of your friendship, they're grieving the loss of the services and access you once offered. Some are even trying to flip the story, claiming you used them, but that narrative collapses under scrutiny. You were the one with momentum, skills, connections, and resources. If anything, you slowed down to help. Their accusations are a defensive fiction meant to soothe the sting of losing what they took for granted. In the end, their complaints reveal more about their character than they ever intended. They confess, by their own outrage, that their relationship with you was transactional, valuable only so long as you remained useful. This says everything you need to know about what they actually valued in their connection to you. Your transformation has set off a ripple that's exposing the true nature of every relationship around you. The people who complain about your boundaries are admitting, without meaning to, that they preferred you when you had none. The ones whining about your selectivity are confessing that they benefited from your indiscriminate generosity. The ones calling you cold are admitting they were used to manipulating your emotions whenever it served them. A clear pattern is emerging, and it reveals more about their character than it ever will about you. The secure, healthy people in your circle are either quietly celebrating your growth or accepting it without drama. They recognize that boundaries are healthy, that protecting your peace is wise, and that being selective with your energy is maturity, not selfishness. They aren't threatened because they never relied on your dysfunction to meet their needs. Then there are the others, the ones melting down over your perceived coldness, frantically trying to drag you back into old loops, inventing elaborate theories about your motives. Those voices reveal they were never invested in your well-being. They were invested in your availability. They weren't worried about your happiness. They were worried about losing a resource they'd been taking for granted. What's particularly telling is how these critics try to gaslight you about your own growth. They frame change as a fault, insisting you've become different, as if evolution is inherently wrong. They call your standards too high, label your peace as selfish, and paint your boundaries as excessive, the classic language of people who profited from your lack of limits and now resent paying the price. In some conversations, someone will even try to claim you've grown arrogant or that success has made you forget where you came from. But there's always another voice, the truth teller, who interrupts with a reality check. They point out you're simply living your life. That simple observation drives the complainers insane because it exposes the futility of their campaign against your peace. The truth teller is vital to this story. They represent people who actually understand and respect what you've become. Observers like them see that your apparent indifference is strength, your selectivity is wisdom, and your boundaries are a demonstration of self-respect. They aren't threatened because they're secure enough to appreciate it. What's building now is a quiet, stronger narrative. The truth teller has been sharing private perspectives with others who know you, noting how focused you are, how productive you've become, how peaceful you seem. They see that you're booked and engaged in the best possible ways, not stressed or overwhelmed, but purposefully aligned with what truly matters. That alternative narrative spreads, while the complainers make noise, making those complainers look increasingly petty and obsessive. While the critics scan your every move, searching for signs you're secretly miserable, the truth teller points to clear evidence that you're thriving precisely because you remove their drama from your life. Meanwhile, the obsessed few keep manufacturing elaborate theories about your motives, scanning posts for hidden messages, and in doing so only prove how little they understand the real shift that's taken place. They're reading into every action, or every lack of action, as if you're sending coded messages specifically for them. They're so convinced that your life still revolves around their drama that they miss the obvious truth: you've moved on. Here's the revelation that changes everything. This journey toward what they call indifference was never about becoming cold or heartless. It was about building spiritual immunity to emotional manipulation. Every person who pushed you to this place served unknowingly as a cosmic trainer, testing your boundaries, sharpening your discernment, and teaching you to stand unshakable in your self-worth. The universe has been running you through an intensive course in spiritual warfare disguised as relationship drama. Every energy vampire who drained you taught you to value your energy. Every manipulator who guilted you taught you to trust your intuition over their narrative. Every person who treated kindness as weakness taught you to be strategic with compassion. Every situation that made you question your sanity taught you to rely on inner knowing rather than outside validation. As a result, you now see the game being played around you without feeling compelled to join it. You can watch attempts at manipulation without being emotionally hijacked, observe drama without feeling responsible to fix it, and hear criticism without assuming it must be true. This is mastery, and it terrifies those still trapped in codependency and people-pleasing. The catalyst is about to make a final desperate move in this cosmic chess match, but they don't realize they're already in checkmate. They may stage a fake emergency, attempt a manipulative reconciliation, or launch a public attack to wound your reputation. Whatever their tactic, they will discover you've become immune to the entire playbook. Expect the moment when everything snaps together. They make their move expecting guilt, fear, or rage from the old you, and instead, they meet total indifference, not performative, not masking pain, but authentic and born from the recognition that their opinion is irrelevant to your mission. That lack of reaction pulverizes their sense of control. Their arrows bounce off your armor. Their escalation only highlights the truth. The more theatrics they stage, the clearer it becomes to everyone watching that they are the disruptors, not you. Their frantic attempts to prove you cold make others question why they remain obsessed with someone they claim doesn't matter. Meanwhile, something far more powerful and beautiful is unfolding in your life. Doors are opening that never could have while you were tangled in their drama. People are arriving who honor your energy, rather than try to siphon it. Situations are aligning that demand the very focus and emotional stability you've honed. The universe is rewarding your discipline with tangible proof that choosing peace over popularity was the right move. The very people who once sat in circles whispering about how you had become cold are now forced to live with the consequences of their own choices. Their constant criticism of you, their endless attempts to paint you as uncaring, is now reflecting back into their own lives in the form of stagnation, frustration, and emptiness. The energy they wasted, dissecting your every move, instead of improving themselves, has started showing up as a lack of progress in their own path. The drama they tried to drag you into has turned inward, wrapping around them like a storm they can no longer escape. The chaos they once projected onto you is now boomeranging back, magnified, demanding they deal with it on their own. In the midst of their noise, the truth-teller's voice grows stronger. No longer content with subtle observations, they start asking the kinds of questions that expose everything. Have you considered that maybe their silence is not about you at all? What if their absence is actually self-preservation? What if their indifference isn't a lack of love, but a sign of wisdom? What if the reason they don't respond is because they're too busy building something remarkable with their life? These questions hang heavy in the air because they cannot be denied. They shine a light on truths everyone has secretly suspected but avoided admitting, and the complainers are left squirming in the discomfort of being confronted with reality. This is where the narrative begins to collapse. Those who once wore the mask of victimhood now have to face a sobering possibility. They weren't victims at all, they were obstacles. Those who accused you of using them now must face the fact that they were trying to exploit you. Those who cried that you didn't care about them must acknowledge they never truly cared about your well-being. They only cared about what you could provide, about the access, attention, and support they were siphoning. The truth exposes itself in layers, and with each revelation, their self-constructed stories lose power. But the most profound shift isn't what happens around you, it's what happens within you. For the first time, you see your journey for what it really is, not a descent into coldness, but an ascension into clarity. You weren't losing your humanity, you were discovering your divinity. You weren't becoming heartless, you were learning how to use your heart with strategy, with wisdom, with intention, instead of giving it away carelessly to those who would squander it. Every single complaint about your transformation has secretly been a testimony to your growth. The people who call you cold are, without realizing it, admitting that they can no longer manipulate you. The ones who whisper that you've changed are confessing that you're no longer willing to be drained. The accusations are really confirmations, and they're telling on themselves while proving your strength. And the irony is, as they complain, they can't stop watching you. Behind the envy and the gossip is something deeper, admiration. They see the peace you've cultivated. They see the success you're manifesting. They see the healthier relationships you're nurturing, relationships not built on dependency, but on mutual respect. And somewhere deep down, they're beginning to understand what they lost when they pushed you away. They're realizing they didn't lose someone who was cold or selfish. They lost someone who was rare, someone who gave authentically until giving became dangerous to their own soul. Meanwhile, the catalyst, the one who triggered so much of this transformation, now finds themselves at a crossroads. They can continue their futile campaign against your peace, or they can accept reality and let go. Most people in their position will double down, clinging tighter to their illusions, desperate to maintain control. But a few rare ones may awaken, forced to confront their own behavior with honesty for the first time. Whether they wake up or not no longer matters, because their power over your path has been stripped away. You are immune now. Their choices are their own to carry, and they no longer affect your trajectory. There is something profoundly poetic about how the story has unfolded. The very people who forced you into this state of divine indifference have become its first witnesses. They created the conditions that pushed you to evolve, and now they have to live with the reality of someone they can no longer manipulate. They wanted to break you, yet here you are, unbreakable. They wanted to see you collapse, but instead they're forced to watch you rise higher than they ever thought possible. And as this realization spreads, the conversations about you begin to shift. The whispers of coldness slowly morph into acknowledgments of strength. People start to see that what looked like indifference was actually the highest form of self-care. They recognize that your boundaries were never walls built to keep people out, but filters designed to allow only what was genuine and nourishing to enter. They see that your selectivity wasn't arrogance but wisdom, wisdom that chooses quality over quantity in every corner of your life. Think back to that conversation that opened this story. Someone sitting across from another, frustrated, repeating again and again, they just don't give a damn about anybody anymore. That conversation is still happening, but now something has changed. A new voice has entered the dialogue. This voice isn't angry or threatened. It's clear, calm, and grounded. It says, maybe the problem isn't that they stopped caring. Maybe the problem is that we got too used to them caring about us more than they cared about themselves. Maybe what we've been calling coldness is simply what healthy boundaries look like. Maybe what we've been calling indifference is what self-respect sounds like when it finally finds its voice. And just like that, the narrative turns completely. What they meant as an insult now stands revealed as a badge of honor. What they once saw as weakness is recognized as mastery, and what they thought would break you has only proven that you were built to rise. The original complainers don't want to hear this perspective because to accept it would mean shining a mirror on themselves. It would mean acknowledging their entitlement, their reliance on you for emotional regulation, and their inability to function without siphoning energy from your presence. It would mean admitting that they grew too comfortable, expecting you to be their safety net, their healer, their constant source of reassurance. To do so would unravel the narrative they've built, and that is far too uncomfortable. So instead, they double down on their complaints, insisting that you've changed for the worse. But whether they like it or not, the seed of truth has already been planted, and truth has a way of growing, even in hostile soil, even in the most barren environments, even in the hearts of those determined to resist it. While they remain stuck in denial, you are no longer tethered to their illusions. You are living fully in the reality that this entire journey was designed to create. You've become someone who can love deeply without losing yourself. You've mastered the ability to support others without draining your own reserves. You've learned to maintain relationships without sacrificing your inner peace. You've discovered how to care for others without automatically making their problems your emergencies. This is not detachment. This is balance and the sacred alignment between compassion and self-preservation. This balance is so rare that most people never experience it. But for you, chosen one, it has become your new foundation. And now the complainers, and the ones who once held power in your life are becoming increasingly irrelevant. They are still stuck in the past, analyzing who you used to be, dissecting decisions you made long ago. But while they're busy replaying outdated versions of you, you're writing a brand new chapter they'll never get to participate in. While they remain invested in maintaining false narratives about the old you, you are actively becoming the person you were always destined to be. They're invested in nostalgia, you're invested in evolution. They're locked in the rear-view mirror, you're focused on the open road ahead. The ultimate truth that emerges from this saga is that your journey to divine indifference was never really about them. They were merely supporting characters in a story that was always centered on your growth. They played their roles, sometimes harshly, sometimes coy, but in the end they were nothing more than catalysts. They created the conditions that forced you to choose. Would you continue maintaining a false peace built on self-sacrifice? Or would you claim authentic peace built on boundaries, wisdom, and discernment? Every time someone complained about your so-called coldness, they were actually holding up a mirror, revealing the patterns you needed to break. Every moment of conflict, every accusation, every dismissal was actually a test to see if you were ready to prioritize yourself with the same devotion you had always given to others. And yes, their conversations about how much you don't care anymore will continue. They will still gather in their corners, whispering the same tired lines. But here's the difference now. Those words have lost their bite. Their opinions no longer pierce you because you've built a reality where other people's approval is optional, nice to have, perhaps, but never again necessary for your peace. You've created a state of being where understanding from others is welcomed, but not required for your confidence. This is what true victory looks like in spiritual warfare, not the obliteration of your enemies, but the transcendence of their ability to influence your inner world, not the silencing of critics, but your immunity to their noise, not the eradication of drama, but the cultivation of a peace so steady that it remains unshaken, no matter what storm rages outside. And this is where the story becomes even more profound. Chosen one, You now understand that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone else's dysfunction. Sometimes the most compassionate decision is to stop pouring into people who have proven time and again that they do not genuinely care about you. Sometimes the path to true compassion requires walking through a season that looks like coldness from the outside, a season of withdrawal, solitude and silence that is not heartlessness, but spiritual purification in disguise. This journey has equipped you with gifts that many people never develop in a lifetime. You have gained the ability to remain calm even in chaos. You've built the strength to enforce boundaries under pressure, even when others try to shame you for them. You've cultivated the wisdom to discern between genuine need and manipulative demand. You've sharpened the ability to see when someone's presence in your life costs more than it contributes. These are the marks of mastery, and they are not easy to achieve, but you've earned them step by step, wound by wound, lesson by lesson. And here's the irony. The very people still gossiping about how much you don't care anymore are, without realizing it, creating the loudest testimony of your transformation. Every word they speak is proof of your strength. Every criticism is an advertisement of your growth. Every complaint is a confirmation that you are no longer under their control. Without knowing it, they have become evangelists for your resilience, spreading the story of your evolution, showcasing the power of healthy boundaries, and amplifying the message of spiritual self-respect. This is your story, chosen one. This is how the universe shaped you into someone who can love without losing yourself, care without depleting yourself, and live in peace without compromise. The people who tried to drag you down became the very ones who elevated you, not by intention, but by necessity. They pushed you into divine indifference, and in doing so, they gave you the greatest gift possible. Though they never meant it as a gift, they forced you to discover that your worth was never dependent on their approval, your peace was never tied to their presence, and your power was never subject to their permission. That's all for today. Heavenly Father, I pray for the deepening of my faith. Teach me to trust you even when circumstances seem uncertain, and help me rest in the assurance of your constant presence. I know your plans for me are filled with goodness, prosperity, and hope. Thank you, eternal and gracious Father, for always hearing my prayers. I lift this petition to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provision. I am truly grateful for the peace, abundance, and presence you bring into my life. If this message touched your heart, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those who need encouragement today. Feel free to leave a comment below about your journey and how you are preparing for your own breakthrough. And if you'd like to support our work, please